Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. Like you already know, in African Docs, our main topic is leadership. And today we are going to be talking about leadership within the framework of business. And the person I'm going to be interviewing today is a formidable individual who has, over the years, made her presence known in the corporate world, both in business and in politics. Okay, then, Larissa, first, I want to thank you for the time that you are spending to respond to some of my questions and to share your experience with our audience. So, for the people who do not know you, what do you say about yourself?
Okay, I'm Larissa Miller. I'm CEO of Phoenix Global, which is a consulting and investment firm based out of the United States, but we mainly facilitate projects around the world, Europe, Africa, and South America. My passion started in agriculture as I grew up on a farm in central Pennsylvania, not far from Hershey, Pennsylvania. And my first job was with the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture. I went on to work for Governor Tom Ridge when he was governor of Pennsylvania. And more recently, I spent several years in the Middle East in Abu Dhabi, as head of business development for a member of the royal family and as head of their large nonprofit foundation, which focused on women and youth, which allowed me to be able to visit refugee camps across the Middle East and start building my relationships across Africa, where Africa has become my passion through the years and my primary focus for both business and my philanthropic work. And I'm pleased to be with you today, and I thank you for having me.
Thank you very much, Larissa. That was really brilliant. Now, talking of leadership, how do you describe leadership to somebody who probably have very little idea about it? I mean, what does leadership mean to you in that sense?
Not everybody is destined to be a leader, but we all have the qualities of leadership inside of us, and it's everything from confidence and empathy and courage and vision. But in today's world, a leader is going to be the one that can see the fractures in our very transformational business world, and begin to reshape their thought process around the way their business operates. A leader is going to have the courage to disrupt their legacy business models and be brave enough to pivot and swivel and go in a different direction. And most importantly, a leader has to recognize that it's not about their own ego and it's not about their own position, and that one of their greatest assets in their business is their employees and recognizing the value of their employees. And, as leaders, we don't always have all of the answers. But yet we feel compelled to carry the weight and burden of our problems, especially in a time like COVID, where businesses are suffering and struggling to find their way forward in this future. We shoulder the weight of these challenges and try to protect our employees. And we're deceiving ourselves if we think that they don't recognize that there are these challenges. And if we would turn to our employees and make them a part of the solution, presenting the challenges to them and allowing them to hack these problems apart, we'll find that we can come up with some very creative and out of the box and forward thinking strategies and solutions, which will allow our companies to be the leaders moving ahead and the trendsetters and the ones cutting the path for all the others to follow.
Thank you very much for that. Now, just a curiosity. In leadership, whether in business or in politics, should gender play any important role in leadership?
I'm one of those that sees myself agnostic to gender because, first of all, I'm a woman who was able to successfully do business in the Middle East, and I'm a woman who does business in Africa. And generally, people don't see my gender. I play on an equal playing field. And so, I think that it's time that we put the concepts of the glass ceiling and so forth aside and recognize that both genders play a very important role in the future of business. And we have very different and diverse perspectives. Many times men tend to think in a very linear fashion, and women have a more, some say scattered, but out of the box and creative and emotional approach to business. And that's why it's so important to have diversity on executive boards, because it's those perspectives that really will prepare a company and set a company on a pathway to success well above their competitors in the same industries and sectors.
Thank you so much for that response, Larissa. Now, as you were replying to that question, a thought just came to my mind. Like, what is your own ethic of leadership? I mean, I want to believe that maybe some individuals do have their own way of executing their role as leaders. In that case, what would be your own style of leadership, the ethic of your leadership?
You know, we all draw on different attributes um, that are prevalent and forward in our psyche. And for me, you know, it's empathy, it's the ability to connect dots that potentially other people can't connect and find interesting and unique ways forward. It's about recognizing that we are a global community, that, you know, even though we do business just within our local region, that we have the potential and the ability to scale that, especially through technology.
Thank you for that response. Now, I'm going to hit back again on the question I was asking before about gender and leadership. Just to help you understand what actually I'm trying to drive at here. You see, for the more than 200 years of American democracy, of American history, the election of Kamala Harris is the very first time that a woman is occupied the position of vice president. Is it that those who run the American politics didn't realize that there were some qualified women who could have occupied that position up until now? So in this sense, what is the role of women in leadership? Why is it that in our society, whether you talk of the West or in other part of the world, women are not as common as men in the position of leadership?
You know, many regard this as the century of women, and I find it rather ironic that it took us to 2020 to really embrace the fact that women play such a strategic role in business and society and humanity. And I also find it a bit ironic that the most tumultuous century in the history of mankind is the one that is, you know, more or less regarded as the century of women. But, you know, all things have its time and all things take time to get where they need to be. And, you know, a lot of appreciation, a lot of forward momentum, a lot of recognition to the value of women. But also it's women are now recognizing their own strength and their own abilities and really embracing the fact that we do have a right to play an important role in the executive branch, at the executive levels, at the judicial levels. You know, women are recognizing that we have every much a right to stand shoulder to shoulder with the men, and that our value, our perspective, and the attributes that we bring to the game are extremely important. And the world is starting to see that perhaps, you know, we need to look at the perspective and embrace the ideologies of women, because that has the potential to be transformational to the future. You know, women will play a very important role in the sustainability of our future. You know, we're the ones that are driving many of the social change movements. We're the ones that are recognizing the importance of the environment and environmental sustainability. And, you know, you look at many of the leaders in the movements that are transforming the way we see business, the way we see our global community. And women are the ones that are really driving the movement towards the fact that we are all global citizens. And that alone is what's allowing us to now be able to assume the roles that have traditionally been controlled by men. And I think in this very disruptive, and that's a very overused word at the moment, but in this unprecedented and transformational time that we're going through, you know, everyone is recognizing that we have to be brave enough to do it differently. You know, we can't go back to normal because normal was clearly the problem. And I think women will be the ones to really help shape a strong way forward in this transformational future.
Oh, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that. Now, how much importance do you place on the role of women in leadership, whether you are talking of business, in politics, or in the society in general? I mean, I want to believe that the little children, the little boys, little girls that are growing up are sort of looking up to the people that are older than them and try to learn from them and try to also get some inspiration from them. So, with this kind of background, how do you see the importance of women in the position of leadership, whether you are talking of business or in politics?
It's about empowering our youth and not just empowering girls, but making it a collective movement to recognize that, women and men both play a very important role in our families, in our businesses, in our communities, and to society at large. And the mindset begins with children. Just like children don't see race until they're taught to see race, children generally don't recognize gender as being anything inferior or superior until they're taught that behavior. So from this point forward, it becomes our responsibility to make sure that the youth see a very collective and unified world from race, from religion, regardless of geography, ethnicity, gender, socioeconomics. And if we can really instill those values into our youth, we will see an entirely different world. But, too often we get very competitive with the person next to us, with that other woman climbing the ladder, or with the executive men when we're the only woman sitting on a board. And I tell everybody to stay in your own channel. Think about yourself, worry about your position, worry about your growth, set the grandest goal for yourself, and then set measurable benchmarks along the way so that you can see your success. And before you know it, with blinders on to what everyone else is doing, you will have achieved your goal. And then from there, you'll set the next goal and the next goal. And before you know it, a farm girl from central Pennsylvania will find herself doing business around the world.
Okay, thank you very much for that again, Larissa. I really appreciate the time that you are spending to respond to these questions. Now, coming back to leadership in general, now taking away the gender from it and looking at leadership purely as it is, what do you think are the most important quality or attribute that a leader should have to be able to succeed in his or her leadership role? I mean, what are those important qualities that a leader must have?
The most important attribute of a leader is the ability to make a decision. Um, be confident in your decision. Don't ask a million people for their opinions and how they would go forward. Look at the situation, consider the situation, make a decision, execute on that decision, and carry it forward, good or bad. If it's the wrong decision, you'll have lessons learned that will make you a better leader. If it's the right decision, of course, that places you on a stronger trajectory for success. But the ability to make a decision and be confident in that decision is very important. The ability to have empathy and to understand in others and to see outside yourself is an extremely important attribute of a leader. Obviously, courage. And when I say courage, it's not that you're never going to have fear. It's that you have the courage to push past those fears and recognize that, even if you just take baby steps towards that task that you have to complete, or that end goal that you have to achieve, even if it's terrifying, with each step you get closer to achieving what it is that you have to do. And most of all, you have to recognize that you have an important role to play in the future of humanity. And that whether it's you personally, whether it's you as a business leader, whether it's your company in general, you must have a conscience, and you must have to do something that empowers the future and is a give back to the longevity and the sustainability of our planet.
All right, to go a little personal about the argument, when you were picking up your discipline, what you wanted to study, you decided to study politics. You decided to study political science. Is there anything that sort of influenced you to pick politics as your primary field of study?
Look, politics has been a part of my life since I was born. My father, who is 89 years old right now, has been a lobbyist for 67 years, and he's still doing it to this day. As a young teenager, I would give up my summers to volunteer in our House of Representatives and our Senate in Pennsylvania as a page. and I loved it. I ate up everything about the political environment. I loved the lawmaking process. I loved being able to see and witness the good and the bad of how the governance of our state, our country, our world essentially is. And it's that perspective that I gained and that appreciation for, in my case, the appreciation for a democratic government and a democratic society that enables me to be able to look at the continent of Africa or Latin America or even my own country now and see what needs to be done differently, where we've been falling down, how we can reshape our thinking to really make ourselves major players moving forward, and stay not only relevant but remain, the global leaders. And when I say that, I don't just mean the United States. I mean that every single country has the potential to step into those leadership roles by managing their governance, managing their natural resources and the unique value that their nation provides, whether it's in agriculture, whether it's in technology, leveraging their abundant human assets, making sure that their people have the proper education to be able to step into the roles that will be needed to be able to catapult those countries from developing and emerging nations into very complex economies. And the potential is there for all of it. It's just maybe a restructuring of the thinking, not being afraid to empower the people to be ones that will help to uplift the nation. And only then will we really be able to see that we are collectively global economies and global citizens.
So, from your experience, how do you judge the kind of leadership that is valuable in Africa? In that you have been there, so you know what is on ground there, whether as a politician or as a business person. You have physically been present there until now. Your company also have a branch in Africa. So I'm trying to see if there is any way you can tell me your opinion about the kind of leadership that is in Africa, because of course this one influence affect a lot of things that are happening there. That's why maybe a lot of Africans are not really producing to the capacity that they are able to produce, as to why a lot of Africans are away from their continent because of the non-functioning system. Okay, talking of immigration and the rest of it. So, how do you see the leadership in Africa, at least from your experience?
That's a very subjective question because that varies from country to country and from region to region. But I see amazing potential for the continent of Africa. And I'm always the first one to say that Africa will be the landmass that will save the world as we have urban sprawled ourselves out of global food security. And Africa has abundant arable farmland. They have the human capital, the natural resources. Everything that mankind needs to survive can be found on the continent of Africa. And that places Africa in a very strategic role to position themselves as the leading continent as we move into the future. But that means making some very tough decisions to potentially cast aside the legacy models of governance and restructure and do it differently and incorporate transparency, and prioritize education and empower the people to be the building blocks of that very developing and complex government or economy. And I love Africa. It's my passion. As much as I can do, I want to see the continent to be preserved and enhanced, and accelerated rather than exploited. I look at the youth in Africa and those brilliant young minds with so much that is up here to offer the world. Is it the next cure for a disease or the next scientific innovation that we can't live without? And it's our responsibility as global citizens to empower the youth of Africa. Because again, as I said, Africa will be the landmass that will save the world.
All right, that is great. That is great. Now we have got into the most interesting part of it, in that what has been in your leadership, in your career, in your growth, of course. What has been your most difficult challenge? Of course, I'm asking this question because there are some other persons who might be facing similar situation, but through your experience, they can learn how to also overcome their own. Of course, that is also the basis for our YouTube channel, the basis for this series of interview, because we are trying to share the experiences of different people. Because since nobody knows it all, by hearing from you and by hearing also from another person, someone who really is interested in knowing something, will be able to know by reading books, by hearing the testimony, the experiences of people. So this is actually the essence of asking some of these questions and continuing with this series of video.
Look, my greatest challenge in my whole career, probably from when I was a child to this very day, is myself. The mental blocks that I throw at myself. Sometimes my mind can be my own worst enemy, and I will find myself, talking myself backwards. And I've learned that, in those moments, you have to stop and you have to regroup and you have to say, okay, somebody said it can't be done, but I will say, why not? And I then begin to calmly talk my way forward in my mind. I lay out a plan, I have an outline, a strategy. I set that ultimate goal and then put the benchmarks in place, like I mentioned before, that will allow me to see success on my way to the grand success. And in those moments in the middle of the night when the mental demons come out to play, and that's sometimes our most difficult time to navigate, I've learned to say to myself, Larissa, get a grip, you can do it. You've had bigger challenges than this, just by merit of the fact that, you have been able to go from a farm to all the great experiences that I've had around the world, the positions that I've held, the people I've met. There is no reason that I have to mentally sabotage myself. And I think once we learn that we are going to have those moments when our mind will be our own worst enemy, that those are the moments that define our abilities to really step ahead and put that courage that I talked about earlier in place. And that's the time when you make the decision to step forward, regardless of what, hurdles you keep or asteroids you keep throwing at yourself. Make a decision and execute on it and keep following it through. And every day take one step forward. And before you know it, not only will you be seeing success along the way towards your grandest goal, but you will start making an impact that can be measured and quantified around the world.
All right, we are about the ending of the interview now. Just a recap. During this interview, we have talked about the different arguments from pure leadership to gender in leadership to politics to a lot of difficulty also in the area of leadership, because there is no one out there that is doing anything significant without some challenges. So we have also learned from you how to overcome some of those challenges. Now, for young people out there, for young men and women out there who are trying to aspire to your own a position, who want to also become leader in their respective field of endeavor. So what would you say to this kind of people? I mean, what would be your advice to them to be able to succeed in their own career?
Look, the most important thing is to never quit. If you quit, you may be quitting one step before your ultimate success, and you'll never know. So, and I say it, and I've said it several times in this interview, set that grandest goal for yourself. You're always going to have setbacks. You're always going to have what you perceive as failures. But each failure is a building block and a learning tool that allows you to be able to step forward with more confidence and make different decisions. And when I say don't quit, that doesn't mean that you don't sometimes have to pivot. And that doesn't mean that the path you're on is always going to be the right one. You may suddenly have to change course on your way to get to that ultimate goal. But as long as you keep that in mind and you keep working towards that, even if you have to step back for a time and take a pause, even if you have to go down a different road, even if you have to ask for help, as long as you keep pushing forward, you will ultimately have success and you will achieve every role, every position, every income level, every bit of impact that you set for yourself, you will achieve as long as you keep pushing forward. And I think the most important thing to remember as a leader is that, we must all have a conscience. Our business must have a conscience. And, we are, global citizens, and that the give back is so important. For every bit of success that we have, we must ensure that somebody else or some other entity has an opportunity to achieve that success. So social responsibility is critical, is a critical mandate for all leaders.
Okay, guys, you have heard it all. It has been a pleasure talking with Larisa Miller, a fantastic person who have shared her experience with us. So I hope you have learned something from this video. I hope you have learned something from my experience, and whatever you see that you have learned from her, you can also put it in your area of business or politics or whatever you see that you are doing that her experience might be useful to you. So Larissa, I want to really thank you for the time that you have spent responding to this question and sharing your experiences with us. We appreciate it so much, and I really want to thank you. It's my pleasure on my part, and it's a pleasure also on our team. So I say thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
the time, and we hope to see you again soon.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.